Okay, welcome to the August 19th, 2024 Public Services Committee meeting. If you approach to speak, please turn the microphone on and identify yourself. Also, if cell phones, if you could put them on mute, or turn them off, that would be fine. So, okay. Clerk, first item.
Number 7, ordinance, second reading, annexing to the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming, land located west of Converse Avenue and north of Del Range Boulevard.
Okay, staff report.
All right, Chair, members of the committee, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The property is located west of Converse Avenue and north of Del Range Boulevard. The proposed area to be annexed is 8.8 acres of land. Property is roughly 33% contiguous along the eastern boundary. Water and sewer will be extended to support the proposed development of the property. Public hearing was held on Monday, August 12th, and no public comment was made, and staff does recommend approval of this annexation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from staff or from committee? Questions or comments? Any public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion? Please turn your mic on.
You are really demanding. Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve. Second.
I have a motion to second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item.
Number 8, ordinance, second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, establishing the zoning classification of AG agricultural for land annexed to the city of Cheyenne, located west of Converse Avenue and north of Del Range Boulevard.
Staff report.
Chair, members of the committee, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. This goes along with the annexation that we just went over. When the property is annexed to the city, it is assigned a city zone based on the underlying county zone. The underlying county zone is A1 agricultural and rural residential. The most analogous city zone is AG agricultural, and Planning Commission heard this item at their meeting on August 5th and recommended approval. Staff also recommends approval of this assigned zoning. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from committee? Questions? Okay, any public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion to second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Number 9, ordinance, second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, changing the zoning classification from AG agricultural to NR3 neighborhood residential high density for land located west of Converse Avenue and north of Del Range Boulevard.
Staff report.
Again, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The zone change before you, it goes along with the last two items, but this is the applicant's requested zone change. So the applicant is requesting a zone change from the city's assigned zone of AG agricultural to NR3 neighborhood residential high density. The proposed development for the lot is multifamily residential. The NR3 would allow or would make multifamily a use permitted by right. So they would be able to basically just go through the site plan process and develop it with multifamily. This development is phase 2 of the existing multifamily development that's just to the east and would be an extension of it. The development to the east is zoned NR3 as well, and the proposed zone would match that development. Planning Commission did hear this item at their August 5th meeting, recommended approval, and staff also recommends approval. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Rennie.
how many additional buildings are they planning on putting in there? Do we know that?
So Mr. Chair, through you, I will actually, so the applicant did provide this kind of preliminary site plan with their phase two portion for the development. So all those darker blue areas would be buildings for multifamily. And then I believe the light blue would be garages, and then you've got the rest of the parking on site.
Okay.
And this is preliminary, so this is not final site plan layout or anything, but this was what staff was provided.
And Mr. Chairman, is the site plan already at planning commission?
Chair, through you, so the site plan does not go before planning commission, that would all be administrative. Right now, the only applications that staff has is the annexation, the zone change request. There is a plat that is also in front of planning commission. It was postponed at their last
That
meeting.
was the one I would, okay. I
Yep,
was curious
so-
if that was the one. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments for Connor? Questions or comments? Okay, public comment. Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, and Mr. Seagrave, could you turn your microphone on when you're moving?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Number 10, ordinance second reading, annexing to the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming, land located east of US 30 and north of and adjacent to East Pershing Boulevard.
Staff report.
Again, Connor White, Planning and Development Department, be up here quite a bit. The property is located east of US 30 and north of and adjacent to East Pershing Boulevard. The proposed area to be annexed is 0.35 acres of land. The property is roughly 24% contiguous to city limits along the south property line. Water is available within Pershing Boulevard, but sewer is not readily available and would need to be extended. Should mention that the applicant has submitted a 201 exception that will come before the governing body for that sewer in September. So next month, a public hearing was held for this annexation on August 12th and no public comment. I guess actually public comment was made from the applicant just explaining the sewer, but no additional public comment was made in regards to the annexation itself. Staff does recommend approval of this annexation and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Connor, I have one. He explained to us how far the sewer was. Is there any, anything from the BOPU looking to extend the sewer toward him or?
Chair, through you, to my knowledge, no, BOPU isn't looking to extend sewer in this area. There has been discussion with other property owners in the area, maybe about an improvement district, but that hasn't come forward or anything like that. With the 201 exception that will be coming before you, you will see in there that the proposed sewer extension would cost roughly $316,000, whereas it would only cost him, I think, around 14,000 to do basically the septic or the alternative that the county would allow. So right now, the sewer, the closest is to the south. But even with that extension, it would be a pretty significant price.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from committee? Okay, hearing none, public comment. If you turn the on, red light will come on.
Oh, sorry about that. Jack Studley of Studley Land Surveying. And I just wanted to come before you this morning for a point of clarification. Most of you know me as the part-time city surveyor. I am not here on behalf of the city. I am here in my private practice representing a friend who requested that I assist him with this annexation. And just for clarity, I wanted to make sure you understood. I have no conflict of interest in this. I did not use my city position to benefit myself And as a matter of fact, I am doing this pro bono for a friend in order to avoid that potential conflict. And if you have any further questions in this regard, please.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
And just for clarification, Tom Cobb, City Engineer, Mr. Studley did approach me with this before he began the process, and he did clear it with me, just so you all know that.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Second.
If you could use your microphone so that it's recorded. Excuse me. Yes, sir.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagraves.
I'm in favor of the annexation, but I'm not in favor of a 201 agreement. In my time, I don't remember us ever allowing a 201. There might have been one inside the city limits. And others have gone to great lengths to obtain water and sewer services. So the annexation is fine, but I'm probably a no on the 201. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay,
Number 11, ordinance, second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, establishing the zoning classification of MUR mixed use residential for land annexed to the city of Cheyenne located east of US 30 and north of and adjacent to East Pershing Boulevard.
staff report.
Again, Counterweight Planning and Development Department. With annexations, we do assign the city zone based on the underlying county zone. The property that we had just discussed that's underlying county zone is MU mixed use in the county. And the most analogous city zone would be MUR mixed use residential. Planning Commission did hear this item at their meeting on August 5th and did recommend approval. And then staff also recommends approval. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions from committee? Questions from committee? Hearing none, any public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second,
So we have motion and a second. I'm gonna have her look at you guys when you don't use the microphones, okay? The
Okay.
look she gives me is stern. Okay, so we have motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Number 12, ordinance, second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, changing the zoning classification from LI light industrial to CB community business for land located northeast of the intersection of Hutchins Drive and Industry Drive.
Good. Staff report.
Again, Counterweight Planning and Development Department. The property is located northeast of the intersection of Hutchins Drive and Industry Drive. The property is currently zoned LI light industrial. Future land use designation is mixed use employment. The applicant is requesting a zone change to CB community business to allow a dog wash to be a part of their business model for Tractor Supply. So a dog wash, basically, it's a large portion of their business, and per the zoning code, that's considered more of a service use, which isn't allowed in the LI zone, which is why this zone change is coming before you. This area is really a mix of both commercial and industrial uses, with CB zoning existing to the west. There are many lots in the area that have gone back and forth between LI and CB, and then CB to LI. The future land use designation does support the requested change in zoning to CB. Planning Commission did hear this item at their August 5th meeting and recommended approval. Staff also recommends approval of this zone change. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from committee? Questions or comments from committee? Hearing then, public comment. Public comment. Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Number 13, ordinance second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, changing the zoning classification from LR, low density residential, to CB, community business for land located at 3501 Forest Drive, located southeast of the intersection of Pershing Boulevard and Forest Drive.
Okay, staff report.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Athen Morris, Planning and Development. And right now, the application in front of you is for a change at the property located at 3501 Forest Drive to change from LR Light Density Residential to CB Community Business. The sole purpose of this change is so that the property can implement an LED sign. Here is the vicinity map behind you. After reviewing the application, the Planning Commission recommended denial at the August 5th Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission recommended denial due to not meeting review criteria 1, 2, and 8. In your packet, you'll see staff's recommended approval of the application, and staff's reason for doing so is in accordance to review criteria 1 through 8. If you have any questions, staff is available for comment. Thank you.
Any questions from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagraves.
I would love to have staff discuss planning commission's 3 items and why you disagree with them.
Planning Commission chose to deny this due to criteria 1, 2, and 8. The first criteria is the application is in accordance with the development policies, physical patterns identified in the comprehensive plan. The commission did not feel like this met the comprehensive plan due to its current zoning state and the neighboring neighborhoods. They denied also with the application review criteria 2 that it is compatible with nearby properties, specifically considering existing zoning, the comprehensive plan, and any other plans and policies created under the guidance of that plan for these areas. Kind of similar there. They did not think it was compatible with the neighborhood and its existing characteristics and policies. And then finally, number 8, whether the application will harm the public health, safety, or general welfare. Planning Commission did not approve of this step either due to the safety that might come due to increased traffic concerns or traffic related incidents. On the other hand, staff of us, we recommended approval due to all the criteria 1 through 8 because we felt it did meet indeed the criteria of the existing neighborhood on this map that I have up here. If we look exactly to the east of the property, we have a ton of community business in that area. When we go to the west is when we start to run into the residential neighborhoods. We're not trying to expand. The applicant is not trying to expand farther west. They're just trying to meet these zoning codes so that they can implement a LED sign. Under their current zonage, they cannot have an LED sign. And so we feel this is appropriate for the commission to, or excuse me, the council to consider.
Any further staff report?
Mr. Chair, this is Seth Lloyd with the Planning and Development Department. I just wanted to clarify a little bit. Essentially, there's a dichotomy here. Staff is looking at this parcel's integration to the west and south, where there is also commercial zoning and its proximity to Pershing, whereas the Planning Commission was looking at the property's boundary to the west, where it is abutting a residential neighborhood. The current church is not a allowed use in that LR zone district. So when we're looking at existing uses and potential future uses of the subject property, it would appear that it might be better to be in a commercial zone district for potential reuse and continued use of the property. However, the Planning Commission was weighting one set of issues and the staff was weighting a different set of issues. Planning Commission applied more weight to certain issues. Staff applied more weight to other issues. Both Planning Commission and staff analyzed the request based on all of those issues. It was just a matter of what we assigned weight to. I hope that clarifies how the Planning Commission and the staff ended up at different results using the same information.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Okay, any public comment?
My name is Judy Trieber. I live in the area of that's being discussed. I'd like to provide a little bit of history. History is important. When these houses were being developed as single-family dwellings, The church was being built, East High School was being built. Henderson School was in place. There was place for 2 more churches. We were told when the houses were being built that there would be no commercial development beyond the church to the east. The commercial development was in Cole Shopping Center, where Blue Federal is now. Before the people built at 3500, which is directly across from the church on the corner, they were again told by the city there would be no commercial development to the east of the church. So we're a little bit skeptical when the church says we only need it for sign purposes, because you see the commercial development that went in beyond the church is apparent there. And we're also going to add gaming to one of the businesses that's beyond the church. So the other comment I would make is the person who had, there wasn't a sign there before, a lighted sign, not an LED. And even though there are adjustments that we were told that the LED sign could have, the person who is closest there has that light shining in his living room window. With an LED light, lighted sign, I'm not sure that that would change. And perhaps there should be a prototype built and maybe looked at by the church members, by their property, because I wouldn't want it strictly in front of mine, and that's how I look at it, and I do live in that area. But we're kind of skeptical about any development, although the church says, no, we won't have. And if there is some kind of commercial development there, the entrance and exit to it would be off of Forest Drive, not Pershing, not east, not south. And so there again, you have traffic in a very, very critical intersection that has separate issues of its own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you'll excuse me, but I'm just going to read quickly the letter.
If you'll identify yourself.
Excuse me, David Evans. I'm going to read quickly the letter my wife and I sent to the Planning Commission, which I think sets out all that I have to say. We are David and Becky Evans. We have lived in the Mountain View Park subdivision for 39 years. The subdivision was planned and created sometimes in the early 1950s. It basically stretches from Forest Drive on the east to Henderson Drive on the west, and from Pershing Boulevard on the north to Omaha Road on the south. It is one of the largest intact subdivisions in Cheyenne. It is approximately 1/2 mile square. The subdivision is adjacent to Henderson Elementary School, Cary, and East High School. Because of that, among other reasons, it is anticipated that it will remain an intact residential neighborhood for the foreseeable future. Part of the initial planning for this large neighborhood was the placement of St. Christopher's Episcopal Church, eventually on the corner of Pershing and Henderson Drive, Grace United Methodist Church in the middle of the neighborhood, and a church located at the corner of Pershing Boulevard and Forest Drive, now known as Crossbridge Alliance Church. It was First Congregational for decades. A drive through the neighborhood demonstrates that it was planned with churches as part of the subdivision. That is why the church in question is zoned LR, as is the balance of the neighborhood. If Crossbridge Alliance Church desires an LED sign to replace its current signage, that can be accomplished through a variance to the current zoning of the entire neighborhood that accommodates the church and accommodates the neighborhood. The Planning Commission can see that changing the lot the church sits on, which is and always has been part of the neighborhood and sits across the street from several homes in the neighborhood, to a commercial zone, could unnecessarily radically change the neighborhood down the road. Doing so now is unnecessary and overkill. We know that the future of any neighborhood in Cheyenne cannot be predicted years down the road. However, many old desire neighborhoods in Cheyenne survive as grand old neighborhoods because of the vigilance of the residents of the neighborhood. We ask you to keep this simple and to accommodate both the neighborhood and the church by guiding Crossbridge Alliance Church to a variance for their sign, not a change of zoning to a commercial lot. Thanks for your consideration, David and Becky Evans.
Thank you. Further public comment?
All right, my name is Andrew Bradfield. I'm representing my wife and my family, three of them back there. I do live in the neighborhood. I actually live across the street from the church. We've lived there for 6 years, 5 years, I don't know. But the point is we do support the church and we do enjoy what they bring to our community. We've loved the neighborhood that we live in. We are very against the zone change. We don't think that that is necessary. There is the variance that can be applied. We also submitted a letter to that first reading from our lawyer. I don't have a copy of it, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but we already made our points that, you know, with that zone change, you know, there's a number of things that could come in the future that we don't want. We want to make sure that we keep our neighborhood in that low density area, and it's the only one in the town like it. We also looked at multiple churches around the town to see how they did variances and how they did the LED boards. And there's definitely a way to do it where it won't upset other people. The lighting has been a question on our side because we do have a bedroom window that faces the church as well. So obviously that would have to be addressed in their plan. And then finally, that intersection has already become a really hazardous intersection. To provide something for drivers to look at more now would be just asking for, you know, future problems down the road. So we do support the variance, we do support the church, but we do not support the zone change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Do we have anybody online? Okay.
Nancy Loomis, 3323 Forest Drive. Like Andrew and his wife, we live across the street at the corner, southeast corner of Forest and Olive. We like what the church is doing. We like the activity of the church, but we are against the zone change. The city weighed heavily on community business that was adjacent. However, the church is actually more aligned towards the residential district to the west. The other community businesses that are in that area have their entrances coming in from, I think what they call feeder roads. Those are roads, Pershing and Omaha, that are designed to take additional traffic from other neighborhoods and then proper lane turns into those properties. And the church is not designed for that. The church, all of its entranceways are on Forest Drive. They face onto a local road. And we have had the experience in the past of extra traffic coming through on Forest. When the Capitol was being renovated and the legislature was there, that's where they parked, was in the church parking lot. And in order to avoid that Pershing intersection at Forest, they would come all the way through the neighborhood, every way that you can imagine to get to those entrances. And so it was a hazard. We also had it more recently when the school built their swimming pool and they had to move the kids over into the neighborhood. And it was tolerable for the 2 years that it was there, but it is not a tolerable situation over time. And as the church had said at the planning commission, they plan on being there for the next 50 years, but we don't know if that's going to happen. We just don't know. We always thought it would be the Congregational church and it's changed hands. So if there was a zoning change, if that's the way that you decide to go, then they should have to meet all the restrictions of being business, which means putting up barriers to protect the community and not entering in from a local street. They would have to redesign so that the entranceway came in from Pershing so that it can manage that traffic and be a safe entrance. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment?
Oh, my name is Jason Siebert. I'm from Crossbridge Alliance Church. And we do appreciate all of our neighbors coming and sharing as well. And I think they have heard our struggles with the process as well of wanting to go for a variance, but seeing this is a better alternative. And they've already answered a lot of what we'd like to say. that we intend to be there for a long, long time, to be a church, to use signs well, to accomplish the purposes as a church that we have. That is our intent and purpose completely in how we want to use that zone change. And I understand all of the difficulty that comes with that, because that opens the door to other things, which is not our intent. But as has been suggested, things happen at times and we can't foresee, although we have no intent in that direction. However, as far as the sign, as a church, we want to reach people in the community, to provide opportunities for them to be a part of our church, to be a part of the activities that are happening there. I believe that studies support this, that church activity is a benefit to the community. When people are involved in things like that, when they find activities at a church to do, it is beneficial for students, it is beneficial for our teens there, and it is beneficial for us as adults that we are able to be a part and actively involved in church activities. And we would love to see that increase throughout the ability to give off the information through a sign there on the corner there of Forest and Pershing Drive. So I hear and I understand, and again, I will, for the sake of our neighbors, we appreciate you guys coming out and sharing your thoughts and even your understanding of where we are as a church. I do agree, a variance would be wonderful, but we're at this juncture right now, and we look forward to potentially moving ahead with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Public comment?
Hi, I'm William Lewis. I'm also with Crossbridge Alliance Church. I was the one that initially approached the city over this. And when we told them about our process to utilize the signage that we have there, only we wanted to turn it into LED rather than the low voltage light bulbs and very little avenue to change those on a temporary thing, you know, advertising something this week and then next week something else. It was very cumbersome, whereas LED, we can get on the computer, changes every 6 to 10 seconds. We can program, if one of our people who are working with that computer system happens to take off out of state for convention or something, they can actually still change the sign from their computer wherever they are. It has adjustable lighting on it, so if it's too bright, we can actually bring down the lumens. Or during the daytime, we can bring it up a little bit to where people are more exposed to it. But we have several things that we want to use for our Sunday morning Bible studies in church, women's Bible studies and prayer groups. We have an over 60s program for the ladies. Men's Wednesday morning prayer, men's breakfast once a month, God's Mighty Men, youth meeting activities, Bible community meetings, children's ministry. We have a food pantry, church neighborhood barbecue. In fact, it's coming up here next week. Life Choice Ministries, Operation Christmas Child. We are one of the main drop-off points for that. We also feed the Camilla shelter once a month, and we'd like to advertise to get more participants to help out with that. So we have a lot of activities that would really help us to have this signage that is more friendly to change on a periodical basis. And like I say, we're not trying to build great big flashy billboards or anything. We just want to utilize what signage we have there. And when we approached the city, we asked for a variance and they said it would be very unlikely that we would ever get a variance. But we were then told that we would have more probability to go through a zone change and get it that way. Currently, as we use our sign now, if we don't get the zone change, according to what they're telling us, that we can only utilize 40% of our current signage. Well, that doesn't offer us very much access to put the kind of verbiage on there. If you look at the sign the picture there that I've given you, 40% of that sign there is next to nothing. We'd just be wasting our time. So that's what we're trying to do. And we appreciate the neighbors, as my brother said here. We're not trying to stir up trouble. We just want to help the community and let them know what we're doing and what we're going on there. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, now I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So, so that I can ask my questions, I'm going to move to approve.
I also have questions, so I'm going to second it so we can ask those.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Dr. Reddy, you were first.
First of all, I want to know, currently is the sign located on Forest or on Pershing? It's.
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding the applicant is looking to revamp their existing sign that's right there near the intersection of Pershing and Forest. It is closer to Pershing than to Forest, but it is in that kind of corner of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Committeeman, could I approach a bench? I have a picture.
If you look at these two pillars here. Yes.
It's facing almost directly perpendicular to Pershing. So it's about a 45 to the east on facing Pershing, and a 45 to the west facing Pershing. So it's not directly facing Forest or directly facing Pershing.
For those of you online, they're circling the spot where it actually faces, where the signage faces.
Got that. And the plan is to convert both signs to like electronic message centers.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions?
Maybe, but I'd be happy to hear Mr. Seagrave's.
Mr. Seager.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask staff about the variance issue. It seems to me that that's the easy answer here to help the church but protect the neighborhood. Why wouldn't we do that?
And yeah, as a follow-up on that, to me, going to Board of Adjustments and getting a variance, I've done that on my own piece of property, so it wasn't that difficult. So why did staff discourage them from that route?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, a variance requires something unique and unusual about the property that is not applicable to other properties in the area. It requires there to be something about the property that needs this variance as opposed to just a convenience. And staff could not recommend approval based on that review criteria. The Board of Adjustment, being their own animal, of course, could make a decision contrary to staff's recommendation. But staff could not recommend approval, and based on staff's understanding of the current makeup of the Board of Adjustment, we find it unlikely that the Board of Adjustment would recommend approval of such a variance. I would also note that although we haven't had that conversation here, we did have members of the public come out and speak against the sign itself at the Planning Commission meeting. And should those neighbors have come and complained against the sign itself at a variance hearing, I find it the likelihood of that passing the Board of Adjustment even less. So that is why staff assigned this application as being more probable. Obviously, you know, it doesn't necessarily guarantee any application. We can't guarantee approval or denial of any application that goes to a public body. On a side note, kind of on a completely different tack, should the council find the sign itself request be appropriate, we could look into doing a code amendment as opposed to a variance or a zone change to the EMC section of code to allow a larger sign or a larger percentage of the sign for an electronic message center. Does that answer those questions well enough?
Follow up, please. So the first item you said, it has to be something different than the neighborhood, correct? And the reasoning?
The reasoning has to be applicable to the site only and not to the neighborhood as the whole. Like there's something unusual about the property, correct?
Well, if you look west, it is unusual about the property. It is. If you look east, it's probably not. So again, it goes back to that divide between staff and the planning commission. Planning commission was, and by description, by legal description, sounds like the church is part of the residential neighborhood as opposed to the commercial development to the east. So wouldn't the sign be different than the rest of the properties in the development?
Mr. Chair, that could be an argument that an applicant could make for a variance. It still goes back to the question of a matter of convenience versus necessity, which is another review criterion for a variance. And I don't know how staff could support this application. I mean, fair on the unique about the property. Generally speaking, staff would not consider that unique, but I could see how an applicant might argue that and the Board of Adjustment might accept that argument. But on the matter of convenience of versus an absolute necessity for the property, that would also be a difficult argument for staff to support. Now, maybe the applicant could come up with something and the Board of Adjustment would find that convincing. There's a reason why the applicant gets to present and the applicant gets to present their reasoning. It's not only staff's analysis, it is also the applicant's request and it's also the Board of Adjustment's analysis of the project.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I see supporting the church efforts as were described as being necessary. Couldn't we argue that? They want to grow and in order to grow, they argue that the sign is the answer.
Mr. Chair, the applicant could certainly make that request. Should that be a method? Maybe the director should weigh in on this conversation as opposed to myself.
I'm
I will defer to the
throwing
director.
some arguments out there, Mr. Chair, but it seems like there's a way to help both parties here and I would like to find that.
The Chair, members of the board, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. Seth did briefly go over the 4 required findings for a variance. Those are based on a state statute and reflected verbatim in our city code. It's not just a 1 of 4 that you need to find all 4 in the affirmative. Again, there's the special conditions, the peculiarity with the land. There is one that's usually a harder hurdle, which is the circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the code will deprive them of reasonable use of the land. That is probably the hardest variance criteria for one to meet. Then you also have another note, which is the requirement that the adjustments necessary for the reasonable use of the land. It's reworded similar to the other one. And then there's the 4th one, which is the granting is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the code. It's my understanding that they are able to do that electronic message center right now. It is limited to 19 square feet based on the zone district. This was the easier path forward. The next path forward would be a text amendment to look at electronic message centers in our LR, low density residential zone districts. Those could be assigned to specific types of uses. They'd have to be broad. It couldn't be for places of worship or places of assembly only. It would have to look at essentially non-residential uses that might exist. So those are options that we could do to move forward. However, that would also require an ordinance re-review by the Planning Commission, and it would delay this process a little bit more. Ultimately, if there is a direction from the council or the governing body to try to figure out ways to move this forward, these types of applications, because this is not, we don't want it to be unique just to this site. It would be citywide. We could explore that text amendment and seek feedback from other property owners that may be experiencing similar situations.
Any further?
Mr. Chairman, can Mr. Bloom or Mr. Lloyd, what other applications or business, if we change this to community business, if for some reason the church finds another decides to sell this property to move to a larger, area at some point in the future, what are we allowing to? Can you give us examples of what would be allowed in this zone?
Tractor Supply.
And Chair, through members of the council, yes, Tractor Supply would be an option. Community business zoning is similar to what you see on Delrange Boulevard. So it could be any of those uses. It could be restaurants, car washes, coffee shops, offices, a variety of different uses. Basically, your general commercial that you see. The characteristics of the development there would be setbacks from the street with parking in the front. That's opposite of our MUB zoning, which we mentioned earlier. We see a lot of flip-flops in zoning. That one actually pulls buildings up to the front curb of a lot.
We need another coffee shop.
And another car wash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave.
one follow-up question. A representative of the church, are we in a, any of you, are we in a real time crunch here?
We'd like to get it done as soon as possible, but
I mean,
we don't.
right, right. But 60 days, while we go through this process, if we decide to do that. I get it. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Rennie?
For discussion, if you look at, we have a business corridor that essentially runs from Converse to Highway 30 on the east end. There is only one electronic sign along that area, and that's at the Little Theater. We allowed that at the time because it faced east and west, so it didn't face anybody in the neighborhood. There was a park and the VA on the west and East High School to the east side. So I remember the majority of the council that voted to approve that at the time thought it's not going to affect anyone or any residences. For the sake of consistency, I'm not a fan of electronic message centers. I think they're a detraction and a distraction. And I voted against the one back then, and I will vote against this zone change today.
Any further questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave?
I'm wondering if there would be support for a postponement for period of time. So we don't totally kill this, but it would give staff the opportunity to look at all those other options. Based upon that, I'm gonna move we postpone for 60 days.
Just as point of clarification, we can only postpone for the 2 weeks, so just till the next meeting. So
Okay, I'll postpone every 2 weeks for 60 days.
Okay.
So you have to do a daisy chain of this.
So we have a motion to postpone. Do I have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to postpone. Any public comment? Public comment. Okay, on the motion to postpone, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion to postpone passes. And I think we're,
DDA expansion.
oh, no, I was talking about on this motion, we're done.
yep, we're done.
Okay, on this motion, we are done for at least 2 weeks. Okay, next
Well,
item.
Not necessarily. So it just still, that's just a recommendation to the governing body. So the postponement will have to pass on Monday night as well.
Right.
Number 14, ordinance second reading, amending section 2.76.040 designation of downtown development district of chapter 2.76 downtown development authority of Title II administration and personnel of the municipal code of the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming to expand the downtown development district.
Okay, staff report.
And Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is a petition to expand the downtown development district to encompass additional properties. I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on how this all transpired. Earlier this year, a property owner who purchased the Mead Lumber Building, the former Mead Lumber Building, and the laydown yard, they asked staff if they could be included in the downtown development district. There was one problem with that specific request is that it was not contiguous to the Downtown Development Authority District. So in July, the governing body considered a resolution number 6419 to authorize a petition of the property formerly known or conveniently known as the Mead Triangle for petition to the district. What this did is this allowed for the HCH Holdings property to become contiguous if there was a petition to expand the DDA district done in conjunction with the Mead Triangle property. After that, right before that resolution was approved, DDA staff mailed out notice inviting all property owners that would be adjacent to HCH Holdings and that Mead Triangle to see if they wanted to participate and petition to be in the district as well. We did receive additional petitions, one from St. Mary's School representing 2 parcels, one being their school, one being the parking lot. BTW LLC, that is located on 23rd and Snyder. It's on the northeast corner. And then Bill Haley, he is on 22nd Street, immediately to the east of the Can Man. So we did receive those petitions. This is a map of the northern portion of the downtown development district right now. That blue area is the area that is proposed for the expansion. I'll zoom in just a little bit to give you a better picture. As you can see, all properties are contiguous to the district. I want to note that this map has one inaccuracy because the southern portion of the Meade Triangle is also in the proposed expansion area. I will make sure that that map gets updated to include that. In addition to these parcels being added to the district, we are also adding adjacent rights of way to this area and the existing district. Right now, the present legal description for this area ends at the property line of the right of way and property line interface on the district side. So for example, if you are on the south portion of the district, adjacent to Central Avenue, the actual street, Central Avenue on the south side of Cheyenne is not included in the district. We are essentially shifting the district boundary to the other side of the street, which then would allow for right-of-way enhancements to be made in conjunction with DDA grant applications or any downtown development authority projects that might occur. That is reflected in subsections 1 and 2 of the ordinance, where words such as east are changed to west and vice versa. The DDA board recommended approval of this to the governing body at their August 8th, 2024 meeting. I just wanted to note again that this new legal description in the ordinance will include adjacent rights of way. I'm open for any questions that you may have regarding this district expansion. But sorry, before I open up for questions, I want to note what this would do is this would also allow the assessment of the 20 mill levy through for the DDA special district for any properties that are not exclusively residential. That taxing would come into effect on January 1st of 2025.
Any questions from committee? Dr. Rennie.
Chairman, perhaps Mr. Bloom or Mrs. Dorr can answer and refresh for me again. Knowing that they're going, by becoming part of the district, they're going to have to pay an additional 20 mils in property tax, and knowing that my perception is they're a long way from what most of us consider the core of downtown. What advantage do they see in coming into being part of the DDA district?
Chair, through you to members of the committee, primarily the benefit for the property such as St. Mary's is they can actively market different events that they are having to attract people to this area of the downtown because they are a nonprofit, they're a church. They do not pay taxes, but we can use that to advertise on our social media, host events there, utilize their services. With the other properties, for example, the HCH Holdings, the former Meade Lumber and the vacant lot to the north, they could be eligible for capital improvement grants that could help assist with development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bloom, could you run by possible reasons and use of St. Mary's School again?
Chair, through you to Councilmember Laybourne and the committee. The church had approached us and the school to help be able to work with the Downtown Development Authority to promote different events that they would have, to also be able to consider them part of the district. So in the event that they're having a community event, it would attract folks and visitors to the northern portion of the Downtown Development Authority area.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from committee? Any public comment?
Nancy Loomis,
Nancy, would you pull that a little closer to you? There we go.
Nancy Loomis, our business is located at 2311 Reed Avenue. I happen to be here by happenstance today. our business was asked to join the DDA. We're part of that extended area. And we did not receive a letter until the first Friday of Frontier Days. So we got the letter that Friday and a decision had to be made by the following Friday. As Dr. Rennie said, one of the things that we had to consider and go through was how much was the mill levy going to cost us? Our expenses have gone up very high this year with higher insurance and that kind of thing. So we wanted to figure that out and what that cost, if it would benefit us or if it would be too much for us to cover through the year and that kind of thing. So by the time we figured out all the questions we wanted to ask, we were to Wednesday of Frontier Days, which is Cheyenne Day. And we were unable to make contact in the afternoon to ask questions. And so we just decided to step back from it. It was our impression, and I think this is what I'm trying to clarify at this time. Earlier, when we owned the property when we were younger, we were very interested in the DDA and becoming part of that. And we were not able to do it for the reasons stated here. We are now at a point in time that someday we will retire, hopefully sooner than later. And so there is a possibility that building will change hands. We were under the impression from the letter that if it were to change hands, that the current owner could then request to become a member of the DDA. Is that correct? Okay, so then an expansion could be done at that time. All right. That's everything. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further public comment? Okay, no more public comment.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave.
I just want to make sure that her property would be contiguous.
It is.
It
with
is.
it. Okay, thank you.
It's-
surrounded on three sides or would.
That's contiguous. Yep.
Yeah, it's the definition of contiguous.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any further public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve on second reading.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laborn.
this is an interesting addition to the district and one of my constituents who's quite knowledgeable in these matters pointed out that this is quite different than the rest of the generally square district that exists from House to Snyder and from 15th to 22nd and the strip on Central in south of the tracks. It's different, but I see good reasons for this to occur. And I don't mean that any of these property owners are going to be necessarily taking advantage of that mill levy opportunity to apply for some of that mill levy fund. But obviously when you see the tracks in the Reed Avenue corridor, proximity to these properties, it makes a lot of sense that this would be the case. And certainly, as in the case of that was just brought up here, there are additions to the district that can occur. And in my hope, certainly would occur as time went on. I know that I've had a lot of discussions with people who own property over there. I would point out that over there at the corner of Snyder and 22nd, you can see that I guess it's a garage type building with a hole in the roof. And that is a concern of mine, and I think that in my discussions with Mr. Fountain of compliance, they were hoping to deal with that soon. So I'm not sure
if this is a precedent that would be applicable in other areas of the basically square DDA district, which I don't think would be such a good idea. But in this particular case, I think it makes a lot of sense because of the eventual Reed Avenue corridor. And I think that this means that this type of a piece of the puzzle, I guess you could call it, makes sense in this case. I don't know what might happen elsewhere, and certainly I'm curious as to what benefit the churches or the school and the church is gonna get, but so be it. So I just wanted to note that this is unusual, but I think it's justified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, being as there's no further business in front of the Public Services Committee, we are adjourned.